And welcome to another edition of the Mojobreak Dugout Session. I'm Cody. Alongside me is Doug, as always. And Doug, I can't even believe it, we're almost a month into this weird baseball season. We're never going to see anything like it again, but almost an entire month in the books. We're going to talk about all of that and much, much more. But Doug, how are things going? I know it's you got kids, school starting again. Things are just like in baseball.
Yeah.
Life's a little weird right now, I'd imagine.
2020 is weird. It signifies weird. And for you parents at home that are doing that distance learning, it makes you think, hey, where's my second job income? I mean, the teachers obviously are having to deal with it as well. But I thought, hey, let me call up my mom and find out how she did this. Oh, wait. She didn't have to go through this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a live and learn and trying to keep your kids focused. And I thought, there's a couple things that kind of stick out in my mind. For one, probably shouldn't be any tardies, right? Unless your internet goes out. For two, I don't know how some of these high school kids that are on TikTok and on Facebook and on Twitter are not going to be tempted to be on these other social media devices while they're in class online on their Zoom calls or whatnot. So that's going to be interesting to see. Plus, when's the first viral class video going to come out? And let's hope it's not anything vulgar, but I'm sure there's going to be some crazy stuff that happens distance learning. But anyways, let's get into baseball. Bowman Sterling just came out. We did some cases on Friday. I love Bowman Sterling. I'm a fan back in the day when it came out. 2009 has one of the bigger Trout autos. Back then, it was an 18 auto per box format. Now they've done the 5 auto per box format, a little bit cheaper price point. But it delivers. It's got all the big names. Jason Dominguez is live in the product, which is awesome. You got Bobby Witt. You got Adley Rushman. You've got some short printed Trouts. And they're on-card autos, which I think I'd like to say it's the more affordable version of your Bowman Chromes with more autos, really. So check out our site. We're going to be breaking more Bowman Sterling, and we'll also have them available for personals. Like I said, it's one of the best values in the hobby. It's pretty much just like your Chrome First, but you're going to have 5 autos. It's on cards, Chrome technology, and it's great.
They're awesome cards, and you see right there a lot of fantastic prospects who, in other years we would get a chance to see these guys live, especially if you're living in smaller towns where you don't get a baseball team. Hey, at least you can go watch, the top prospect, you can go watch Adley Rushman take some at-bats. But I think that leads us to our first big topic of the day, which is, I feel like we were talking about it a little bit before we started, kind of the sleeping giant right now in terms of all of the after effects of this COVID-shortened season. And that is the state of minor league baseball, which it's easy to forget just a few months ago that this was a hot topic. I mean, I remember during the election cycles, the primaries, I think Bernie Sanders even brought up a big talking point about how minor league baseball needs to save these teams. So this made a huge crossover into the political sphere. And obviously with COVID, things kind of took a back seat. But still, the plan right now, everything I was looking up, and you guys could correct me out there if I'm wrong, but the plan still is for minor league baseball to eliminate about 40 teams in 2021. And of course, on top of it all, there's going to be a lot of guys who were just drafted, who just came out of high school, who are going to probably go at least a year, if not 2 years, without professional baseball experience. So, Doug, this is, I think, something that is going to have massive repercussions, not just next year, but let's say the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, and I mean, from the card perspective, it makes you wonder what's going to happen with these upcoming Bowmans, because we have 3 Bowman releases a year, and you're talking about 150 to 200 prospect first Bowman autos that are going to be in this set. We already started to see it with 2020 Bowman, where everybody was going after Dominguez and Witt, but usually there's a couple guys that have some good performances that start going up and start being sought after. You're just not getting that right now with the way that the thing's going. I mean, is there just absolutely no, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I'm naive, there's just no way they can play without fans? I mean, is it a funding thing? I
think that's what it is. I think it's just a matter of it's not worth the money to go out there and, everything that is required for a minor league season, the buses, the meals, the housing, all that stuff. They just have deemed it with everything going on that it's just not financially feasible. Could they do it? I'm sure they could. There's a lot of baseball owners that are worth a lot of money. Even teams that are considered small market teams are owned by guys who are multi-billionaires. Can they afford it? Probably. But I think they have just decided, you know what? The bottom line is the bottom line, and that it's not worth it right now to spend that money when it can go to other places for the major league squad. But it's going to be a very strange time. And you mentioned it. I think the line I've heard from you guys since I've started here is that the card game is kind of, in terms of the rookie class, is kind of frozen in time right now. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the case for baseball, I think, now for at least the next year. And next year it's going to be weird, obviously, for a number of reasons. But if you're taking away 40 teams from minor league baseball, and a vast majority of those teams are going to be rookie league teams. So you're going to get guys who are just coming out of high school, a lot of international prospects too, who are like 15, 16 years old, right, who they need that experience in rookie ball. Those teams are going to be gone. A huge amount of those teams are gone. And a lot of those guys are going to start in low A or single A, which doesn't sound like much, but especially for the really young guys, it could really stunt their development. And I think the product on the field is going to suffer for a couple of years.
Yeah, it definitely makes me wonder, 5, 6, 7 years from now, when we have these big name guys retiring and stuff like that, what the future holds during this period. And I mean, that goes for all sports, and that goes all the way down to high school. I mean, you've got kids that could be getting looked at in their senior year for scholarships, or maybe even kids that would get drafted out of high school this year. I mean, you've seen the guys come out of high school that it takes them a couple years to make it, but those guys are not going to get a shot. Maybe they put all their eggs in that basket, and now they have to kind of re-game plan. And unfortunately, maybe missing on the next, big thing, because some of these guys are just going to, focus on maybe an internet job or something where they know is stable, because they're not going to be able to get drafted during their senior year because they're not going to be able to play.
Yeah, and look, baseball is not the only sport that's going to suffer from this. We've already seen it in college football. I mean, it looks like everybody is basically sitting it out. Maybe the SEC, I know, is still trying their hardest to get some teams to play against this fall, but most teams have just decided fall sports are not going to happen in college, and that's going to be a huge effect for football, basketball, all these other sports. But I think baseball is so unique in that the development process takes so long for many cases, where it's going to be tough. You see the top prospects on screen right now. Those guys are probably going to be fine. A few of those guys are already up in the major leagues, and guys are in that taxi squad area where, I think, for example, we follow the Giants here, and already one of their top draft pick is already in that taxi squad getting reps. So those top guys are going to be okay, I think, for the most part. But it is those guys who are sort of fringe guys. And there are a lot of guys in the major leagues who were fringe minor league players and grinded it out in the minors and spent a lot of time there and made it up to the major leagues because of that. And I think that's where it's going to be really tough. And you're going to see, maybe in a year or two, things are going to start to look maybe a little more sketchy on the field. I hope I'm wrong, but
right.
That might be.
What if this thing goes into next year? I mean, maybe just this blip is okay, where everybody will pick it back up only 1 year later. But talk about 2 years later, that's a big difference. So. Yeah. I almost would think with the minor league system, there is 4, 5, 6 levels at times. That what if you just went live on YouTube and you stayed within your state? I don't know, and you could get sponsorships locally. Right. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of businesses that would want to sponsor a feed. I mean, the feed may only get 5,000 or 6,000 viewers, but hey, if one of these up and coming prospects goes 4 for 4 with 10 RBIs, that's going to make it on ESPN, and then your sponsorship is kind of vilified at that point. Maybe there's a big Jimmy John's in the background when this guy goes 4 for 4. So I don't know. To me, it's just like I think they could have it with no fans, and I think a lot of fans, especially, and I may be more jaded because I am a Bowman guy and I like to go and look at the box scores for not only the San Jose Giants but all these these little teams that I got a guy that I'm collecting. I want to see how he did. And so I'll go look at the box scores. You can't do that now. I mean, but if you had the YouTube, if you had some kind of live stream, you could just do 2 cameras or something. And, I don't know. Just doesn't seem like – it seems like there would be a way to get these guys to keep going and keep competing. But.
Yeah, I would love to see that. And even for the card game, there's going to be that shorter window where, like you said, there's guys like Jason Dominguez. His value is going to be what it is for a while. But, guys can't grow their value. And when guys come up to the majors, there's that really short window of like either they're going to be real cheap and then suddenly they go on a 10-game hit streak and it goes through the roof. So it's going to be really weird for the hobby side of things. And obviously the on the field stuff is going to be weird. And beyond all that, 40 cities are going to lose potentially teams. And those are not the, let's put it this way. I love going to San Jose Giants games here in the South Bay, in the Bay Area. But I would be heartbroken if they were gone. But this is still a big city with a lot of other big city draws. There's a lot of other teams to go see, professional sports teams. But, a small town of like 50, 60,000 that's got a minor league baseball team, that's a huge part of the community that if they go, that's a really big hit. So it's going to be a strange couple of years for the prospect
just imagine,
game.
like you said, it's somewhere in the middle of nowhere where they don't have a professional team, but maybe they had that minor league team. And how many kids maybe went with their fathers? I mean, that's one of the reasons I started playing baseball. I played baseball for about 15 years, and I went to the A's and Giants game, but it was only 30, 40 minutes away from me. But if that was their only way, I mean, how many kids are probably not ever going to play baseball because they're not even seeing it, in those areas. So it has a bigger impact than just those current players. It could affect future players by not being able to put the game out there.
Yeah, at a time where baseball was already sort of at a crossroads, I feel like Rob Manfred is doing everything to sort of take away attention from the sport. They had that open window of opportunity before the NBA and the NHL got back on the ice or the court, if you will, and to be in the national spotlight. And now the middle of the baseball season is stuck in the middle of NBA playoffs starting as we speak, and Stanley Cup playoffs are going on. So it's another example of how Manfred is just kind of squandering the moment now.
You made a good point there. If you turn on any sports station today, there is no sports channel that is leading off with baseball at this moment.
Unless there's a perfect game or something today, the top story is going to be playoffs now. And you've got an NFL training camp starting at the same time. Right. So these are all part of this. I don't know what it is, some grand scheme to destroy baseball. I don't want to go that far, but these are all little tiny things that are all kind of piling up together. And, come 2021, 2022, what's baseball going to look like to the public as a whole? And I hope it's not the worst case scenario.
Sure. Me too.
All right.
I love baseball.
Yeah. So. Well, we love baseball. And I love watching baseball. Look, it's a weird season. Things feel a little different, but I'm just glad there's baseball. That said, though, there have been some rule changes that, I'll just put it lightly, I don't really like all that much. Yeah. But let's go over a few of these rule changes. You see a few there on the screen. Obviously, one of the big ones that was talked about and has been debated for years on end is universal DH. There's also the double headers. There's also the extra inning rules. But let's start off with universal DH, which was something that I feel like National League fans dreaded for years and years and years. And now it's here, and I feel like no one's really talking about it anymore, which is, I'll be honest, as a fan of National League Baseball, was something I kind of expected. I thought that the moment it's here, you're not going to miss the little things as much as you thought you would. You're not going to miss sacrifice bunts as much. You're not going to miss double switches. It's not why I watch baseball. Man, oh man, I can't wait for that double switch in the 7th inning. No one's watching baseball for that reason. You're watching it because you want to see big moments, big hits, big home runs, great pitches, great strikeouts. And to me, the DH in the National League doesn't take away from that. Sure, would I like it to not be there? Sure, but it's going to be there. And I think, Doug, this is just this is here to stay. Maybe not next year, but in the next CBA in 2022, if that even does happen with all the strife going on. But if it does, I think DH is going to be in both leagues.
Yeah, and I think you see Bruce Bochy sitting back, and he's just has about 15 reasons on why he retired now. So he's just at a 3.
Don't have to deal with that anymore.
Right, the 3 batter minimum plus the DH here, and I don't know. Yeah, I like the pitcher batting. I mean, I like it for a couple reasons because you could have that. We've had Madison Bumgarner as a Giants fan, and guys would just, it's a pitcher, I'm gonna throw him fastballs. And this guy would get away with a couple home runs a year, which is pretty exciting. And then when the Kershaws come up, you're like, okay, it's 2 outs, Kershaw's up. You could rest a little easier when it comes up to that spot in the lineup, especially when it's early on in the game. And I like the strategy around it. I know, like you said, baseball's all about, and trying to get those home runs and stuff like that. And let's face it, pitchers are going to bat sub 200 and they're going to strike out a lot, and that's not exciting. But I don't know. It's just something you're used to. You're used to your routine as a National League fan, and you're used to it. So, but I do agree that I don't notice it as much. I'm not like, noticing it like I used to. I would like it to remain the same. And, interleague, you have to play. American League has to adapt to the National League rules and vice versa. But I think you're right. I think there's enough going on now that I think most of the teams are going to say, yeah, we want the DH universally.
Yeah, and I think that, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's something like the National League is one of 2 professional leagues or something, 2 or 3 professional leagues in the entire world that doesn't use the DH. Every other league uses the DH that plays professional baseball. So the crowd has spoken. The DH is here. It's not going anywhere. And I think that a few of those names a few of those faces you see right there on screen, the Mets with Dominic Smith, they've been looking for a spot for him with Pete Alonso kind of coming out of nowhere for them. He lost a spot in the lineup. Now he's a DH and he looks great. The Reds and the Dodgers had way too many good outfielders. Now they're fine. They've got a DH spot. And the Nationals can use World Series hero Howie Kendrick every day, and he's been doing great in that lineup. So I think you're going to see a lot of players this offseason maybe even say, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to lose playing time. Like a guy like Howie Kendrick, for example, as I mentioned, he's in his late 30s, but if the DH is there in the National League, I bet you he plays until he's like 41, 42 years old and just, puts up good numbers. So you're going to see a lot of guys make that argument as they have for the American League for years on end. So I don't think he's going anywhere.
You only had 15 possible DHs before. Now you have 30. So you're going to have, guys that are going to extend their career. I mean, you see like the comparisons of, Bernie Mac, Mr. 3000. I secretly hope that, maybe Barry Bonds would find a spot somewhere.
Ooh,
Heck,
man.
The Giants could use him now. I mean, I think he'd probably be one of the best hitters behind Donnie Barrels and Yaz.
That's fair, yeah.
Put him out there. I'm sure he could probably still hit 240, 250, maybe good for a couple bombs, and then maybe he gets to 3,000 hits because I think he's like 60 or some away.
Yeah.
But anyways, my point of that is that you'll see some of these guys, like Albert Pujols, who probably should be close to retirement. Maybe he'll extend his career. Which might mess with some of these hitting records, but I think you're going to, you got 15. These guys are, they may not have been in the top 15 of the DH, but now they got to be in the top 30.
Yeah.
So it opens up a lot of things.
Exactly. The Players Association's not going to argue against creating 15 more starting jobs, and I am not going to argue against having Barry Bonds at over 50 years old in the middle of the Giants order. I bet you he leads the team in on-base percentage even at this age right now. It would be fun.
And I've been, kind of watching other things. If Barry Bonds on the Giants, I don't think I would miss an inning.
No.
I would just be like, okay, I may miss the innings. I know he's not going to at bat, but I'd be like, okay, he's going to be up. I'm watching his at bat, regardless if he goes 0 for 4, strikes out. Let's entertain some fans,
And I think that if it happens by 2022, that would be his second to maybe his last year of eligibility for Hall of Fame. So get back as a DH and we reset that clock.
Right,
Let's go. Let's do it.
Somebody may use them. And I don't know what the rules are if you're, maybe like the last 10 games of the season or something. We know we're out of it and just have them out there just to, entertain and for nostalgic purposes.
Why not?
I know it's a big gray area with Barry still. I know A-Rod's nobody even remembers.
No, he's making the Hall of Fame at this point.
Right, and Andy Pettit nobody remembers. But Roger and Barry, because they were not nice to the media, everybody still holds it very close to the vest on their skills and their stats, and one of the reasons why they're not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's go over another rule change that, look, the DH, there's going to be people for or against it, but I think most people at this point are just like, hey, it's here. We're going to have to accept it. Mm-hmm. This extra innings rule, though, where minor league baseball has actually been doing this for a few years already, where in extra innings, in the 10th inning, the batter who was the last out of the previous inning starts the inning at second base. I cannot express how much I despise this rule. It is awful. It just completely changes the game, and just, to me, once it goes to the 10th, I'm like, well, all right, now we're just playing in fantasy land. This game doesn't matter anymore. Whatever happens, happens. You had your chance in the 9th to win the game, and I get it. the whole process, the whole reason behind it is we got to shorten the amount of time people are on the field. It all makes sense. I get that. But if that's what you're trying to do, there's still the possibility the game keeps going and never ends. Just for this season and this season only, I would have preferred a tie after, 13 innings and do a point system. If that's the goal, that to me is better than this bizarre runner on second, ghost runner, whatever you want to call it, scenario that I think is also really unfair to the home team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your back's against the wall. And, I get that they use the fact that they were like, it's COVID and we don't want the players in the field.
Right.
I think there's a lot of bigwigs behind baseball that want to continue to speed up the game. I mean, we've seen it countless years with the pitch count, with now, with all these things that they've done to speed up the game. Baseball's fine. Leave it the way that it is, because what you're going to do is you're going to lose some of the purists of baseball, because so you're gaining maybe the young fans that will casually, tune in during some of the big home runs and the exit velo and all this stuff. But what you're doing is you're alienating the baseball purists that just want to watch the game the way that it's intended to be. They're using that reason about COVID, and I don't think it's that. I think they're just trying anything to speed up the game and get viewers back in from basketball, from football, whatever, to try to get it. And I just don't think it's going to happen. I think you need to focus on maybe other storylines and just let the game be the game.
To me, it's a gimmick. This is a total gimmick. I think it ruins the integrity of that game. I mentioned that I think home teams are really at a disadvantage. I made sure to look that up because I just felt like, I feel like the road teams are winning these games more often. This may be inexact, or maybe I got the math wrong, but from what my count, road teams this season are 16-8 in extra inning games.
Wow.
To me, that means the rule's broken.
Yep.
That this isn't working.
It's kind of like that rule in football that they changed with the field goal, right? So if you win the coin toss, how many percent? It was like 60 or 70% of the time that team winning the game. All you got to do is bunt, sacrifice fly, and that's it. I mean, I don't know if like a runner at first base would have been better. I mean, maybe
at least a little bit. Like, to me, if I don't know why everybody's not just intentionally walking the first batter.
Right.
Like, why is that not happening more often? Maybe it is, and I'm not noticing it. But if I'm the manager, I'm just intentionally walking the first guy, and then all right, fingers crossed. Hopefully, we get a double play. Exactly. But I don't like anything about it. I'd rather have ties, and I hate ties. But I'd rather have ties right now.
And I can't even disagree. I'm with you. I'm on the same page on that one. I think, it's almost like, when you play with your friends, you'd have ghost runners. It's just kind of feels like that. It's like you made something up. You've been playing like you play with your friends and it's going on too long. All right, a ghost runner on second. It's like, I don't know. It's just, you're right. It's the strategy's taken out. The strategy of like your closer or whoever is going into the extra inning game, it has to change. He's in the stretch. It's not the way that it was intended to be. No. And we saw it a little bit this weekend. I have up there, of course, the Bay Area. We were watching that Giants A's series. I just got to mention it because one of the absolute wildest series I've seen in a long time. The A's did benefit from that. They've been actually one of the teams that has kind of gone against the grain, and they've won a few walk-off games in extra innings. So kind of proving that maybe they are a team to be reckoned with. But, of course, they were one of those sort of beneficiaries of the extra inning rule. But, also when the Giants give up 5-run leads in the ninth inning, I think you've heard that win. So and I know it's too early to say this, but I almost felt like this series was like, if you're ever playing poker with your buddy, and let's use the A's and Giants as being buddies because we're from the same area, and your buddy's got most of the chips on the table and you only have a little bit, you kind of fold to him. I almost felt, I know that wasn't happening, but it just almost seemed in that fashion, like, hey, A's, we're not going to do anything this year. You guys have the best record. We'll give you a little bit of a fight, but at the end of the day, you're going to take the series. It was just, one of those series that you just, as a fan of that team, you just wish you would have gotten blown out in those first two games to just lose 7-2, which I think the stat was the A's hadn't won in the ninth inning 7-2 since like the 50s. That's how long, and I don't know how often that's happened in major. I'm sure there's a stat out there how often that you're up 7-2 going into the ninth.
Not often,
but yeah, it was a bad series as a Giants fan, and it's baseball. It's a rookie coach, and it's a very rookie defense out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if this was a full season, I think I would have taken those losses a little harder, but 60 season, things are weird. I almost am like, you know what? It is what it is. let's just get this over with.
It's kind of what we expected anyway.
Yeah, exactly. There's no expectations.
You know?
Exactly. There were no expectations with this team, so it is, whatever. It happened. Let's move on to the next rule. The last rule I want to talk about is a rule that got put in sort of as an emergency protocol, and this is not something that's going to stick around. I think this is one we can pretty much guarantee is a one and done deal, and that is the 7-inning doubleheaders, where because teams like, as you see, the St. Louis Cardinals, who were finally back in action this weekend, I believe the Cardinals, including this past weekend, have 6 doubleheaders on the schedule. So good luck, St. Louis fans. That's you're really putting Ernie Banks's immortal words to the test. Is too much baseball a good thing? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But they are going to be playing a lot of doubleheaders, and because there's such a tight schedule, you're seeing a lot of those games all those games get shrunk down to 7 innings. This is one where I'm like, I get it. You got to do what you got to do. It's a weird schedule. Do I like it? Of course I don't like it. I'd rather it be 9 innings. But, hey, if this is what you got to do to get through the season, then so be it.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, because then you look at their advantage of not having as much bullpen wear as other teams, right? Because you're going to be able to manage a game knowing that you're only going to play 7 innings, where you can possibly leave your starter in for the 5th, 6th, even if it's, questionable. So you probably makes it a little easier in a sense. I mean, I know they're back to back, so maybe the wear outweighs that because, instead of having a day off in between, you're playing back to back, where maybe you are like a Josh Hader pitches back to back. But yeah, it's interesting. It's going to change the whole strategy of that team. But I think you're right. I don't think there's any other way that they can do it. Yeah. Just for, you could have 4-hour, 9-inning games where now this team's playing for 8 hours that day, right, on a doubleheader. So I guess it's the right decision, but it's just weird. And
yeah.
If you're a Cubs fan or anybody else in that division, and you're, I think especially the Cubs now, if the Cardinals make a run and kind of pass you up, you can pull that card out of your back pocket and say you only play 7-inning games now.
Yeah, I guess that's my other point with this is, look, this was always, I think before the season even started, there was the argument, does this even count? Does this even matter this season? Do we put an asterisk on it? And I'm not big on putting asterisks on record books or anything like that. Like, it happened. You dealt with the circumstances you were given. And I do feel that way a little bit about this season, but with so many other variables, like the Cardinals are going to play so many games in such a tight amount, in such a tight space that it's an unfair advantage to them. It's an unfair advantage. It's unfair to, or not an advantage. It's an unfair disadvantage to them, right. I should say. And the same with a lot of those NL Central teams that are going to have to face them, and AL Central teams. You've already got it, of course, with the Marlins, where I am starting to get to the point, I think, as each day goes on, I'm like, the validity of this season is just kind of starting to go away. And right. I know some people are already like, I'm there already. This season doesn't count, and I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. And I think that's kind of where I'm at this point, is that I'm not going to, in my mind, I don't think I can ever get myself to be able to view this season as legitimate. And I think these 7-inning doubleheaders really, to me, show that that's going to be the case. It's just not going to. This is not baseball as it's meant to be played. We're just trying to get as much as we can. I'm just going to enjoy it in the long run, but I can't see it. I can't take it seriously. Yeah, sense, right? That's what it is. Yeah,
and I bounced on earlier podcasts specifically about basketball because I looked at it like, if I was a fan of the team that wins, let's just say whoever team wins, and you're a fan, you're happy. In your mind, that's a championship. So I'm going to bite my lip. I'm not going to go out of my way to congratulate that fan if I have one of my friends is, you like how I'm not even saying the Giants have a chance at it, but, I'm not going to go out of my way to congratulate my Cubs fans if they win or congratulate my Yankees fans, but I'm also not going to be like, it's an asterisk season, didn't count. So I'm just going to bite my lip, and, it's the only way we could have sports. It is wonky. It's a 60-game season as opposed to a 162-game season. There's a lot of different weird things going on. You won the tournament. You won the tournament. Exactly.
I think the difference though with because to me, whoever wins the NBA Finals, whoever wins the Stanley Cup, I will still see them as a pretty legitimate champion. Like, they got to play a full regular season. I know the NHL had that kind of weird tournament play-in that had some strained results, but for the most part, whoever wins those, I'm going to say you won fair and square. You pretty much finished a regular season, minus, maybe 8 or 10 games. Whereas baseball, it's so strange. You have 16 teams. It's a tournament and then another tournament. So, if you win the tournament, great. What a great accomplishment for you. I almost hope, in a way, that it's a team that's won a lot of championships so that it's just like, well, it's just another one for them. Whereas, if I'm like the Mariners probably aren't going anywhere. They had a rough weekend. But if the Mariners won their first title this year, I'd almost feel bad for Mariners fans. Because it's like you've been waiting all these years. And then you win the 60-game, 16-team playoff year. It's like, I'm sure.
It almost would be better if, like, the Yankees or but then again, you got the Dodgers, too.
The Dodgers don't want to. They would want to win, but at the same time, don't want to have to always defend themselves.
What if Kershaw goes in there and he's just lights out in the World Series this year? And it's like, But it's not the same.
No, the way it's stacking up right now, it is it's very chalk right now. It's like the Yankees are just dominating, the Dodgers are just dominating. So I thought there was going to be some weird little quirks to the season. It doesn't really look like it right now. If you look at the playoff picture, the teams you expected to be really good are the really good team. So it actually may end up being a really strong 16-team tournament.
With the A's maybe being the wild card there.
Yeah, but even then, they were in the playoffs last year. They've been around for a few years. So, I don't think I expect them to be this strong. But you're right. Yeah, they're kind of that maybe the one little outsider team. Yeah.
But I think Manfred probably, if he had to pick, would probably want Dodgers, Yankees, not
100%.
Dodgers, A's. But
100%.
We'll see.
Yeah, Dodgers, Yankees. He is trying to do everything he can to will that into existence.
Was it 88 or was it 90 that the Dodgers and A's played?
88.
88.
Yeah, 88. That was the Kirk
Gibson, right?
Yeah, 90 was A's Reds.
That's
where,
right.
Man, that A's team should have won 3 in a row. And
I
know Oakland fans are probably saying, "You're telling me," but
they needed an earthquake to get one.
Yeah, the dynasty that never was. Well, let's wrap things up with a few players and teams that, as we are, by the end of this week, we're going to be halfway through the season, which after 30 games still sounds very weird to me, but that's where we're going to be. And, it's very strange because I feel like there are a lot of guys who are like, I'm a first half guy or a second half guy, or I really need a month to feel comfortable. But, it's getting late early. I think I've said that line. You've heard that line a lot, I think, talking about baseball. But let's talk about a few guys that have underperformed or teams that have underperformed that need to bounce back. And I think first and foremost, a guy that has been a focus of the hobby, especially Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who has been one of the most highly touted prospects of all time. And last year showed some signs, especially in that second half, that he is going to be the real deal. He's still just 21 years old. I think we always have to remember that. It's hard, though, when you see Juan Soto doing what he's doing. Right. And you're like, well, Vlad Guerrero Jr., he's the same age. Why is he doing it? And he hit a third home run yesterday in the final game, I think, against the Rays. So I think he is starting to turn it on a little bit. But, boy, I'd really like to see him have a nice second half of the season here.
Yeah, and when he said last year that he didn't work out at all, I think it kind of looks bad now that he doesn't work out.
Shades of Pablo Sandoval all over again, just rushing back to my memory with that quote. Yeah.
Right, yeah. He's like, I don't need to lift at all, and I was like, wow. I mean, I know the English isn't correctly there. Maybe he didn't exactly mean he doesn't work out at all. Maybe he's just doing the treadmill.
Something lost in translation.
Weights. But, I mean, I was always concerned with him from the beginning as far as that big body. I mean, with, you looked at Prince Fielder's career and it ended kind of short. I mean, he had a great 4 or 5 year span, was smashing home runs. And, you kind of see that kind of body style with Vlad, except Vlad's a third baseman, right? So, I mean, there's a lot more movement compared to first base on the third base side. But I would like nothing more. Vlad, he's a sweet guy. I mean, his dad's a Hall of Famer. I've always been a fan of his dad. I've always been a fan of him. And, Toronto, they have so many prospects. I think they draft every former player's kid that comes up through the system. Anyone that's played before, they draft them. So, I mean, if there's a Bonds coming up, I'm sure he'll be on.
I think Darren Baker is coming up soon. So maybe next year's draft, he's a Blue Jay.
On the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
I mean, was it Bichette, Biggio, Conine? I mean, it's incredible their amount of former players, kids on their team. But yeah, I want to see Vladdy succeed, and I mean that ferocious swing he's got. I mean, it's going to be It's going to be top 10 on SportsCenter when it happens, but it's just not happening frequently enough this year.
Yeah, not quite yet. And I think even that whole Blue Jays team, I don't know if I expect them to be a playoff team this year, but with the shortened season, I kind of thought, you know what, they could surprise a lot of people. They are starting to look a little bit better. I think Teoscar Hernandez is just raking right now for them. Bo Bichette, though, unfortunately on the injured list. So it's a huge time now for Vlad Guerrero Jr. to step up.
Well, and keep in mind, they're like the Chargers of baseball.
Right.
So
no home right now.
Forever a road team. So, I mean, I know that shouldn't factor in, but you know, you're used to your home park as far as defensively. You know, when you're an outfielder, you know where you need to play, where you need to be, and you know, you kind of used to the crack of the bat, the way that it sounds, the way the ambiance is. So there is a little bit probably you're going to play in something new. It's going to take some getting used to. Throw in COVID, no fans. You know, I'm not giving excuses to them, but they are like the Chargers.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is. They are a very unique situation compared to the rest of baseball. Let's talk about another guy who can hit the ball a very, very long way, and that would be Pete Alonso of the New York Mets, who just came out of nowhere last year. And, you know, he had great numbers in the minor leagues, but a guy who was, again, never really a top prospect, and then he goes ahead and hits over 50 home runs for the Mets as a rookie last year. He has gotten off to an extremely slow start. You see him there with his teammate Dominic Smith, who has really picked up the slack with him. What do you expect for the panda here, or the polar bear? Excuse me, I'm calling him. I got my bears mixed up. The polar bear for Pete Alonso. He's just not quite gotten it going, and this Mets team, I think, because of that, has really had a slow start.
Well, he opens up baseball cards with his teeth, so that was a knock for me.
That ain't good for a lot of reasons.
On the million card rip party he was doing with us. But you know, some of these guys, you know, I don't want to like compare him to like an Adam Dunn, but you know, you have this freshman year of, you know, these pitchers not knowing where your zone is, stuff like that. You're hitting bombs, you win the home run derby. You know, sometimes these guys watch a lot of tape in the offseason and they find where the holes are at.
Yeah.
And it's going to be up to him to kind of break from this and find out where, you know, he can get his swing back. But, you know, like these guys that just are mashers, sometimes they either go like towards the Adam Dunn route where they're going to strike out 200 times a year and occasionally get a home run. I hope that's not the case for Pete Alonso, but, you know, you have Cespedes leaving the team, so less protection in that lineup for him. And, you know, the Mets kind of seem a little bit like a mess right now. So, I mean, if Pete starts mashing, gets back on track, and maybe it's just a little bit of a sophomore slump he's going to break out of and he's going to get back. I mean, we saw it with Judge. I think Judge had it towards the end of his rookie, or no, was it his sophomore? But he hit a wall for a couple months. Yeah,
he did. And it might be happening here with Alonso. And obviously, these are a lot of talented players who the proper training regimen, the proper off-season training, they weren't able to follow through with it because their spring training got halted, right. And then they were sitting on the couch, a lot of them, for, you know, or working out in an apartment or in a garage for about 3-4 months. So everything is a little rusty right now. I think you can even see the numbers offensively across baseball are down right now. The pitcher injuries are way up right now. So, yeah, I think Pete Alonso is going to be fine in the long run. Maybe, you know, he starts to get on a hot streak here as we head out of August and into September. But, yeah, I think he's just like a lot of people where it's a mix of the sophomore slump. It's a mix of a weird training regimen. And, you know, that Mets team, you said, is a bit of a mess. Definitely a team that I think its parts are better than when you put it all together. For some reason, it's just not quite working. It's a lot of talent.
Yeah, and I just look at it like, you know, Cespedes being one of the bigger names in that locker room. You know, it'd be one thing if he just opted out and didn't show up and play. But to actually try and play, and as a teammate of him, you're like, well, why? You know, you're like, it kind of brings morale down, right? You know, right. You're trying to do this thing, your 60-game season, and this guy just doesn't show up. People are wondering if he's alive.
Goes AWOL. Yeah, he totally went AWOL.
And then he's just like, hey, by the way, I'm out. And it's just like, well, what's going on? You know,
Yeah.
Where's the chemistry? I mean, it brings morale down.
Yeah.
Just like a
that's fair.
workplace. If all of a sudden you were working on a project with somebody, and then all of a sudden they're just like, hey, I'm gonna sit out for like a year. And you're like, what? You know,
Right.
I mean, you're gonna be like, this is weird.
Yeah, exactly. Another player in New York who is having some struggles right now, and probably is one of the very few Yankees who's actually having some struggles right now, but Gleyber Torres, who another guy who was a hot name in the hobby for a while, I'm sure, where he comes up with the Cubs and then gets traded over to the Yankees and really had a breakout year last year. Looked like he is primed and ready. I saw him in commercials this offseason, and I'm like, here he is, Gleyber Torres. He's going to be one of the faces of baseball, and he made that shift permanently to shortstop now, and he's had some growing pains. He's kind of relearning the position, and I think that those struggles have also shown up at the plate, where maybe he's focusing maybe a little too much on trying to get everything just right at shortstop, and I think maybe kind of mentally, I think he may not be in the right place right now, but luckily for the Yankees, they've got so much other talent that they can make up for the loss of Gleyber at the plate in the meantime while he tries to figure things out defensively at short.
Now, this may be an obvious question, but I want to ask you in terms of the Yankees, you know, the Yankees have always had a guy that's the guy, right? So they've had Derek Jeter, obviously, until he retired.
Yeah.
Is that guy Aaron Judge?
I think it is right now, but I really think that Gleyber Torres could be the guy next. And Judge is a phenomenal power hitter. He's got some great. He even is a pretty good defender as well. So I think that he is definitely the face of that team right now. But I think also if everything goes according to plan, Gleyber will be the guy, and I think New York loves that position, that shortstop position, and they can get attached to those guys who make those amazing plays, and
Right.
and he's a good-looking guy, and it just he's got that everything about him to me screams this is the new face of the Yankees if he can put it all together. Right now it's Judge, but I think if Gleyber can figure things out at short. I think he is the new face of this team, but there's so many other guys coming in the pipeline. Obviously, Jason Dominguez could be right next to him in that lineup for many years to come, and the Yankees are going to have a lot of faces of the Yankees for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, what was it? Was it 5 or 6 years ago when it was just an absolute sell-off? The Yankees just basically right after Jeter, actually Jeter might have still been there, but they just got rid of everybody. But they just made the right moves. It's incredible.
A one-year rebuild, really.
That's really all it was. I mean, didn't they go from 1 year to being like
and
bottom, and then they made it to the playoffs the next year?
They weren't even a losing team that year. I think that's the thing I always forget. They were like, I think maybe second or third in the wild card standings, and to them that is like, we've hit the bottom. We got to rebuild, and then they're right back. I think they were in the ALCS a year later. So
I mean, they got Gleyber Torres from the Cubs, as you mentioned. I mean, one guy that I don't think has panned out for them is Clint Frazier. I think that they got for the Indians, who was a huge prospect. But they've found ways through their minor league system to get. I mean, then signing obviously Stanton and Garrett Cole. And, they went from zero to hero. And you know, if you're a fan of like other teams out there that have never done this, you're just like, can we do what the Yankees did?
Right.
I mean, it's like you got so many people, and it's easy when you have a big market and you have money to spend, but some of these other teams wish they could turn around that fast.
But to then even they get all these top rated prospects, but then to stumbled onto Gio Urshela, who becomes a part of the middle of that order. Luke Voigt, who was always kind of like a fringe guy, and then suddenly he's a middle of the order guy there. So even that, it's just like, come on, guys, at least something has to go wrong for you, and it just never does.
Yeah, and then last year, everybody was hurt, and they just kept winning. It was I think they had the most injuries, and they were leading the league. It was just incredible what the Yankees were doing.
And we'll wrap things up with two teams that overall I think are just about to make that turn to become big-time contenders, that become very dangerous teams. First of all is the defending champions, the Washington Nationals, and they've had kind of a weird year. Steven Strasburg is hurt right now. He just got placed on the IL. Of course, there were delays very early in the season when the Marlins outbreak happened, so they got delayed. There have been tons of rain delays for them. If you remember that opening night,
got kicked out of a game.
He just got kicked out of that game, yeah, and then
for
had
yelling
to
from the stands.
right? Walked up to go get a beer or something when he gets thrown out of the game or something. I don't know. It was a weird look. And of course, you remember that opening night where it was just like a storm of the century ripped through Washington, D.C., and they've dealt with rain. So it's been this weird, disjointed year. And Juan Soto was out at the beginning of the year with a bunch of false positives, false negatives with COVID, and no one knew what was going on. But he's back on the field and looks like Fernando Tatis is still maybe my pick for NL MVP, but after maybe a slower week from him, Juan Soto is looking as good as anybody for a candidate for MVP in the National League.
Yeah, I mean, and the guy's back to ferocious swings. Another guy that's just got a beautiful swing out there. And, those good names you mentioned, I mean, I think last year we were kind of struggling with who's going to be the face of baseball. And I think in our podcast last year, we were talking about Bryce Harper. I think you've got Tatis, Judge, Soto, Trout. I think you've got some strong names. Now, we were clowning on baseball earlier in this segment, but I think you've got some really big baton holders that are going to be here to stay for a very, very long time. I mean, how old is Soto? Is he 21 right now?
I don't even think he's 20. I think he will be 22 at the end of the year, if not 21. And he is very young still. He's got so much time left.
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, he's pretty much a 5-tool player. And, I mean, I don't know what Bryce Harper is thinking about. What I would love to see what he said about last year, because, they go and he doesn't get anywhere with them, and then he leaves and they win a championship.
Yeah, they bet on Soto. Yeah, they bet on Soto and Robles and that young outfield, said we don't need Bryce, and they were right. And I think they're going to be proven right again. I think that if this team can put the pieces together, I mean, the pitching staff, even without Strasburg, I think they can more than handle his absence for the meantime. The offense, it can be, even without Rendon this year, which I think was a huge loss. I think a bigger loss than Bryce Harper. That's something I think they're going to have to persevere. But again, you just have to be one of the top 8 teams and top 2 in the division, and you're in the playoffs. So I think this team is easily one of the 8 best in the National League. Absolutely. And if they get there, they're dangerous.
And as we know as Giant fans, you have to get hot at the right time.
Oh, yeah.
So, those Giant teams that won were not even close to being the best talented team in the league at the time of our 3 World Series championships. And, it's going to be whoever, goes into the postseason 5-game winning streak and just has ultimate confidence. And, I think the Nationals are a team that could be poised for that.
Absolutely. And one last one from the American League. Man, did you see what the Chicago White Sox did to the Cardinals yesterday?
Back to back.
Crazy. The 4 guys you see on screen. And it's not just that there was 4 guys, just random guys. These are like the guys who are expected to be the stars of this team. Moncada, Yasmani Grandal, Eloy Jimenez, Jose Abreu. It just would have been perfect if they had gone back to back to back to back to back. And it was Luis Robert who maybe got that 5th one. It was just like, here you go. Here's the future of the Chicago White Sox right in front of you. I think this is a team that I know they're 500 right now. I think they're even still in a playoff position technically. But I think this team can be even better than what we've seen. Their offense is there. Everybody, a lot of those guys have arrived. So they are good to go. But it's just like Lucas Giolito hasn't quite put it together yet. Gio Gonzalez, who was kind of expected not to be an ace, but like the 3rd or 4th starter to eat up innings, give you an ERA floating around 4 to the high 3s, and just give you reliable starts. And he's just been a mess, and the bullpen has had its problems. So I think if the pitching can really figure things out, if Giolito can get back on track, I think the Twins have pretty much got the division in hand. But with all that internal strife going on in Cleveland right now, the whole Mike Clevenger, Zach Plesac's excellent adventure situation, I think that 2nd spot is totally up for grabs now.
Yeah, and I mean, if the White Sox don't do it this year, I mean, they're poised. I mean, all those guys are pretty young. I remember, Abreu's getting a little bit up there, but I remember him and Chris Bryant was the first Bowmans in 2014 that we were going after, and he's had some solid seasons, but just completely underrated. Like, people just don't mention him. And then getting Eloy from the Cubs, getting Moncada from the Red Sox, putting these pieces together. And, now with Luis Robert, you could have a lineup of 8 to 9 guys in this White Sox team that could go for 30 to 40 home runs each. you could be talking about a team when a full season comes around that they could just have the most home runs as a team of all time easily.
Yeah, they're going to be a really fun team. If, like you said, if not this year, in the coming years, they're going to be really fun. They don't even have Michael Kopech right now.
I was going to say,
was that top pitcher they were expecting to be their ace. And they get him back next year, and you've got Giolito hopefully back to normal if he fixes his problems. Man, oh man, I think this team is going to be really dangerous for a long, long time. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up here for this edition of the Mojobreak Dugout Session. Of course, subscribe to the Mojobreak Media channel for more. If you want to hear the hype later in the week, we get that into nice little short segments for you. If you can't digest the whole thing in an hour, we bring it to you here on the Mojobreak Media channel. And, of course, if you haven't already, subscribe over to the Mojobreak Card Shop. And, of course, check out our live breaks on the Mojobreak main feed. For Doug, I'm Cody, and we will see you next time on the Mojobreak Dugout Session.